I know what you're thinking. You saw the thumbnail and you said, wait, Brian H. Waters just said on last week's episode of the Wrestling Round Now podcast that he was not going to have anything negative to say about Triple H's booking for 5 weeks. Well, I don't have anything negative to say. I am pointing out observations of things that I have noticed that are very similar to Vince McMahon. So, when it comes down to the more things change, the more they stay the same.
No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just going to keep you right where you're at right now.
It doesn't matter what you think.
The Wrestling Realm presents Break It Down with Brian H.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. The show brought to you by SeatGeek. You know, you can save $20 on purchases $50 or more. Look, we ain't gonna talk about the Baltimore Ravens if you're in the Baltimore area. Quite frankly, if you're in the Philadelphia area, you probably don't want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles after they just lost the match to the Giants. Yes, I said a match, not a game, because the Giants outmatched them. But yeah, and we obviously know they ain't going to the World Series because the Philadelphia Phillies lost. But guess what? If you're a Dodgers fan, if you are, I guess if you're a Yankees fan, you're not happy either. Just trying to hit some of the demographics of people I know that watch the show, the DMV, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York, kind of morning. But guess what? Those on the West Coast, y'all good. Now, folks, here's the thing. I was sitting around. Actually, I was getting ready for the day, and I got a lot to do today. And I said, I just started thinking. I was thinking about content because I'm a content mad machine, as being a journalist that I am. Shout out to Morgan State University, which I will be attending in a few minutes. I'll be going up there to talk to the students about creating the wrestling realm while I was there. But I said, Vince McMahon and Triple H booking is kind of similar, right? So let's go back in time. Let's evaluate the beginning, right? When Vince McMahon took over, he needed an all-American hero, somebody to get the crowd going, a larger-than-life superstar. He had Hulk Hogan. Well, Triple H inherited, and not meaning as Vince McMahon died, but when he took over, he inherited the greatest of all time, Roman Reigns. But Roman was the ultimate villain. So he needed that guy, that all-American hero. Dare we say, the white savior, that being Cody Rhodes. So boom, we have 2 boxes checked, right? Now people may say that is a stretch, but when you really think about it, right? Cody has been driving, because you think about WrestleMania 40, and Stephanie McMahon came out there and said, welcome to the Paul Levesque era. What happened that night? Cody Rhodes finished that goddamn story. Cody Rhodes was anointed as the WWE World Heavyweight Undisputed Champion. Now, you do have your Seth Rollins, you do have your Drew McIntyre, but I started thinking, right? Who are people that are similar? Well, Drew McIntyre is somebody who's been a protagonist, constantly going after Cody Rhodes. He was a world champion for just a few minutes before it getting cashed in. And Drew McIntyre tends to remind me of Roddy Piper. You got that protagonist who's always there, who can be a superstar, who can be the guy who can lead the company as far as the heel, but yeah, just not quite there. So you think about one thing that Vince loved. Vince McMahon loved his blondes. And this is no disrespect to all the talented women, but let's keep it real. When you think about Vince McMahon, you think about who I deem the greatest of all time, Trish Stratus. You think about the Sable and Sunny era. Then there was the Michelle McCool era. There was also the Charlotte Flair era, right? Now, you sprinkle in a couple of people throughout that time, by the time Rhea Ripley came, she was in the transition. So, she could be looked at as the Triple H gal, which a lot of people say kind of reminds them of China. But what I say is, who's the women's world champion that just seemed to not lose, been undefeated over a year, no matter how bad people think her matches are, no matter how much the crowd may turn on her. It's Tiffany Stratton. Yes, Tiffany Stratton. So that's the reason why we saw the Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus matchup. It felt like a dynamic of Vince McMahon versus Triple H. So those are two things, right? So then we talk about tag team wrestling. Now, we thought we saw some promising when the Motor City Machine Guns came to WWE. We saw some tag team turmoils here and there. We saw some big tag team matches, but it still tends to be a complaint by the audience. Let's not forget, when Vince McMahon took over, there was Demolition, there was the Killer Bees, there was the Bulldogs, there was the British Bulldogs, there was the Rougeos, there was the Hart Foundation. There was never a shortage of tag teams. Now, even late in the later years where people like to complain, you can go back to 1999. You had a tag team turmoil match. Then you also had a tag team championship match. 2 different matches. So tag team wrestling was present. And then obviously the Dudleys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian. Now you have tag team wrestling. But like I said, is it the showcase? Now, people may say that's an industry thing. People may say that's a WWE thing. Obviously, you go to AEW, you see how tag team wrestling has been presented. But it's still something to note, folks. You know, and you can rebuttal. Please do it in the comments. Please hit me with a like and subscribe. And if you don't like this video, hit don't like. So if you drive that algorithm up, people are going to wonder, what is it that you don't like? So then I also think about the major thing. The lack of pushing of black talent. Now, we can sit up here and tell ourselves Carmelo Hayes is in a good spot. We can sit up here and tell ourselves, well, he's with The Miz, he's on television. That is true, right? But it felt like he was a little stagnant and held to a certain degree. You go back to wrestling throughout the years. During the Vince McMahon era, it was Bad News Brown. Now, the word on the street is Bad News Brown was supposed to win the Intercontinental Championship, but he didn't show up. Hulk Hogan said, well, put it on Wayne, Wayne being a honky-tonk man. But we never saw Bad News Brown in a prominent role. Then you also have other people throughout the years who, there's the Shelton Benjamins, there's the Booker T's, and Booker T was just held to a world title, not a WWE championship. These are the arguments that black wrestling fans have loved to make throughout the years. They said even the word on the street was when you have that old so mighty class of, 2002 of Shelton Benjamin, John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and Brock Lesnar, Shelton was the best. But out of all of those, he has the worst accolades, the least accolades, I should say. Maybe he has the quantity of championships, maybe up more, but he was never a world champion. That is what, are we not seeing that on Raw and SmackDown right now? Look, like I said, I mentioned Carmelo Hayes. You look at the New Day. New Day had the potential to go in and be the most dastardly heels, a heel run that could have lasted well over a year or two, just on the simple strength of how they treated their best friend. Instead, it flopped. Now, they did win the tag team championships at WrestleMania, something that rarely happens. When we think about people, black talent that's won championships at WrestleMania, you have, and this is off the top of my head. This whole video is off the top of my head because I just had to, before I sat down, I had to do it, right? But we have Naomi at WrestleMania 33, Cedric Alexander at WrestleMania 34, Sasha Banks and Naomi at WrestleMania 38. Obviously, Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania 35. Now, Bobby Lashley successfully defended the championship at WrestleMania 37. Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 37. Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 38. Bianca Belair successfully defended the championship at WrestleMania 39. And then the New Day at WrestleMania 40. Oh, and nobody won at WrestleMania 39. If they did, somebody will let me know in the comments. So when you think about Triple H, This year, he's had 2 official WrestleManias and only the New Day. Yeah. And we also saw Bianca's streak. And then you just, like I said, so are things changing or are they staying the same? That is the question I have for you. So the last point I want to make, the heel turn that flopped under the Vince McMahon era is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yep. Now, Triple H is John Cena. Which goes to show you, no matter what, you can't take your biggest babyface and turn them heel. Now, remember, Hulk Hogan's heel turn, which people wanted to compare John Cena's to, took place in WCW. And it made sense because it was technically an invasion angle. Instead, they didn't do it that way. And John Cena's heel turn flopped. He knows it sucked. Like I said, it's just like Stone Cold Steve Austin's. So, like I said, the more things change, the more things stay the same. That is what I want to ask you. Are we really better with Triple H at the helm than we was with Vince McMahon at the helm? Because at the end of the day, we can't say it was all bad because Vince McMahon gave us the bloodline. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this week's episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Come at me with the comments. I can handle it. I can take the heat. We used to say that when we wanted free Chick-fil-A on the Thursdays back in 2009. Boy, we was eating good. Until the next time, folks, so long, everybody.